Hello folks, Alex here. This is Alex Unabridged, and today it's time for my wrap up for July's adventures in genre, which was, of course, Junior Jeepers Creepers, that is middle grade and YA horror. So welcome back to the channel if that is the case. Yes, episode 7 of Adventures in Genre. This is Junior Jeepers Creepers, middle grade and YA horror. I had 4 books on my list. I got through 3 of them, so we will look at those 3 today. We're not quite finished the month of July yet, but seeing as I've finished all of these books, I thought I would get this out in a timely manner, as we've got Garb August coming up, and that's going to be quite a full month. So yes, I thought we'd get this video out a bit quicker. So straight in then, and then we'll start with the first one that I read, which was Darkdeep by Ali Condie and Brendan Reichs. This is a library book, and this follows a group of 4 kids, sort of 12-year-olds, and their adventures as they discover a mysterious island off the coast where they live, and the spooky happenings that go on there, and the Darkdeep, which is a strange kind of pool of water in the basement of an old houseboat that's randomly in a lake somewhere. It's all very mysterious. How it got there, what it's for, who's been there since, it's abandoned when they get there, and it's full of strange artifacts and things like that. And the Darkdeep, if you go into it, creates things from your mind, basically. And it's basically, their adventures, them trying to figure out what the Darkdeep is, what happens when they experiment a little too much, perhaps. And it's the first in a series of books. I really enjoyed this. This is middle grade. This is, I think, aims at sort of 9 to 13-year-olds, something like that, 9 to 12-year-olds. This was really, really good fun. The characters, the kids in it were all, they were likable, but they had their own flaws, they had their own anxieties, their own quirks. It's as much about them trying to navigate their friendships, their friendship group, bullies, things like that as well. And it's mysterious, it's fun and mysterious, and there's some darkness in there. But they're all, as I say, they're all smart kids and curious kids, and they want to kind of they want to find out the mysteries, but at the same time, they don't want to do anything that will cause trouble for their town. I was really impressed with it. It's certainly evokes a good atmosphere. It's got, you can really imagine everything very clearly. And it's the first, as I say, it's the first in a series, and I will probably read the others if I can find them. I mean, my library might have them, so I will check when I go back in. But otherwise, I'll probably get them on Kindle, because it's piqued my interest, shall we say. It's a good introduction to this world, and there's a lot more to learn about the Darkdeep and the things that kind of dwell on this island. So yes, this one is a 4 out of 5 from me. Really interested in learning more about this world. Right, next up, I read one that had been on my list for a while because my niece loves it, and that is Frozen Charlotte by Alex Bell. And this is aimed at kind of young adults, so it says 12 plus on the kind of, from the publishers, that's sort of lower age group, and it does say on the back, warning, not for younger readers, and I would agree with that, most definitely. Man, was this creepy. The Darkdeep had a good sense of tension to it, things like that, but this was creepy, really creepy and dark. I I kind of had to sort of say to my niece afterwards, like, really? You were okay with this? She was like, yeah, it's not that bad. I'm like, okay. It's like, if I'd have read this when I was 12, I'd have been scared to death. But yeah, so, you know, it is well done. It's about a teenage girl called Sophie, who, with her friend Jay, one night summons a spirit, spirit of her dead cousin, through a Ouija board app, and things start to go wrong. And she goes to spend the summer with her cousins, the siblings of this dead girl, Rebecca. You've got Cameron, who's the teenage son, Piper, who's the teenage daughter, and Lilius, who's sort of the little girl of the family, sort of similar age to Rebecca from when she died. And they go to stay in their house up in Scotland, which was an old school, and the school shut down because of really horrible happenings, horrible events, deaths, that seem to be connected with these dolls called the Frozen Charlottes. Yeah, creepy dolls to start with. That's definitely one of my nemeses in horror. So that's one thing. But just the actions of the other kids, there's quite a lot of cruelty, I think, in this, from, you know, the human characters, not just the dark stuff that happens with the Frozen Charlottes. But there's a lot of cruelty to each other. There's cruelty to animals, which I always find really difficult. And yeah, as I say, it's dark and eerie and just quite nasty in parts. Certainly for the age group that it's aimed at. I mean, I think things have probably changed quite a lot since I was a kid. You know, I don't think necessarily when I was a kid a lot of my friends were reading stuff this dark. I certainly wasn't, but then I'm a scaredy cat. But yeah, I think maybe just modern kids are like better with stuff like this today. I don't know. Let me know in the comments if you're similar age to me. I'm 42. If you were reading like quite dark stuff at sort of 12, 13. But yeah, still very, very good. Really enjoyed it. It's a 4 out of 5 from me. The characters are well formed. They've got intricacies, nuance. There's, you know, there are you know, there's depth to their characters. The setting is very well realised. There's a really good kind of backstory and sort of bits of lore and history to the setting, things like that. It's well described. It's evocative, and it's quite fast paced as well. I mean, it's quite a chunky book, but it didn't feel it. It's fast paced. So yeah. Very interested to read some more from Alex Bell, actually. I know she's written some others in this Red Eye series. So I'm going to look them out. There are more Frozen Charlotte stories, you know, in this series, I believe. So I will have a look at those. But yes, managed to creep out a 42-year-old. Well done. And the final book for this month was one that was pitched very much as a YA horror, and that one is The Monsters We Deserve by Marcus Sedgwick. And this is really interesting one. This wasn't scary in any way. It was very atmospheric, but yeah, I wouldn't necessarily call it a horror. It's a work of gothic fiction, definitely. And this is essentially the thoughts, diary, musings, writings of a writer who has gone to a isolated cabin in the Alps to write and kind of think about, explore Frankenstein, the ideas of Frankenstein and Mary Shelley's writing. A book which he says that he hates, but he's kind of obsessed with. And he's struggling with his writing. He's a horror writer, but he's struggling with his writing. And he ends up in a conversation with essentially what is the ghost of Shelley. for one. And then, you know, other ghosts or apparitions of Shelley's creations show up. But it's a really interesting kind of, it's a meditation on writing, on the difficulties of writing, on horror, on sort of great literature and legacy as a writer, as an artist. It's got some interesting statements in it. It's got some interesting historical references. There's quite a few references to like Nietzsche in it. There's quite a bit of philosophy generally in it. So yeah, I found it really interesting actually, and it's quite a nice writing style. The only thing I would say about it that I'm not sure about is I can't necessarily decide whether it's the character of the writer who is pretentious, and he is definitely, but I can't necessarily decide whether that trips into the actual general writing and feel of the book, whether it's kind of pretentious anyway, or whether it's just that the main character is pretentious. It does kind of, some of the writing feels a little bit forced in terms of its kind of lyrical prose or its description, things like that. But not enough to let it down. I still really enjoyed it and I ripped through it. And it's got quite a nice format actually as well. It's, you know, it's very short chapters. It's broken up with kind of these sort of pages that sort of spell a sentence across as you go through. It's got some nice imagery in it, things like that. It's kind of, parts of it are printed sort of with the text, you know, on pages with little sort of photographs, etc. at the bottom. It's never distracting though. Sometimes I think with stuff like that where it's, you know, you've kind of got imagery in with the text, like, you know, like that. It can be a bit distracting, but here it's not. It doesn't bleed too much. So I'd say, you know, kudos to whoever designed the kind of the actual print format of the book, because it works really well. This is a 3.5 out of 5 for me. As I say, just because I can't quite decide whether I think some of the writing is just generally a little bit pretentious or trying a little bit too hard. But in terms of what it's talking about, what it's trying to do, it's ambitious, and in the most part, it's well executed. And certainly for students, you know, sort of higher level students in terms of like A level or GCSE students who are studying Frankenstein, studying Gothic literature and things like that. I think this is a really interesting take on something like that, and I think could certainly make that text, that original text, more relatable to a sort of a modern teenage audience. So yeah, really interesting book. I will check out what else Marcus Sedgwick has done. So those were the 3 that I got through. I did have another on the list, which was an audiobook, The Girl in the Well by Rin Chapeko, which I did start, but I didn't get very far into it. The narration just kind of wasn't really holding my attention. It was a little bit flat. And I was kind of I think I was just not in the mood really for it. It just wasn't fitting my mood either. So I will probably go back to that at some point. It's on the Audible Plus catalogue. I like the premise. It probably deserves a bit more of a chance. But I just, as I say, I wasn't in the mood. I'm a mood reader and I'd got other things that I wanted to get through and needed to get through because I had library books out. So I thought, no, I've read 3. That'll do for this month. So yes, that is my reading for Junior Jeepers Creepers, and I will certainly be checking out some more middle grade and YA horror books. You know, I like my horror anyway, as you'll know if you watch the channel regularly, and you know, I often quite like my horror quite dark, quite gory, but there's definitely something to be said for the quick, exciting, slightly creepy read of something like the Darkdeep, or the actually incredibly creepy read of something like Frozen Charlotte. And it's just really interesting to see what sort of things are coming through in that, you know, in that sort of genre for younger readers. And so I'll definitely keep an eye out for more YA and middle grade horror. So next month, August. August is going to be for action and adventure. It's Garb August as well, obviously, that month, so I have a massive reading list for Garb August. So I'm going to pick 2 books for some action and adventure. And I don't know exactly what they'll be yet. I'm going to go to the library on Monday, so that's the 31st of July, and I'm just going to have a browse because they have a lot of action and adventure stuff in there. I might try and get hold of one of the newer James Bond novels, maybe one of the ones that is it Anthony Horowitz has written. I think Trigger Mortis is the first one that he wrote. I'll have a look and see if I can find some Jack Reacher, perhaps, some Lee Child books. He does the Jack Reacher series. I'll see if there's any maybe Clive Cussler or some Chris Ryan, some military stuff, things like that. And I'll find some things that are kind of a bit more kind of modern action and adventure, men's adventure type stuff. I've got some men's adventure, obviously, for Garb August, which is kind of older stuff. But I'll see what there is that isn't quite so trashy and that is, you know, kind of just a bit more contemporary. And come home with a couple, basically, and give them a go. So yes, a bit of action and adventure next month, because I don't read anything like that. I don't read spy stuff, I don't read military stuff. So I think it's time I give that a go and see if it's my cup of tea. So yes, so that's what next month will be. So if you've read any of the books I've talked about today, do drop your thoughts in the comments, as always. If you've got any recommendations for action and adventure books, again, drop them in the comments. This video will be out before I go to the library, so I can take that into account. So thank you very much for watching today, folks. If you enjoyed this video, please do consider giving me a like and subscribing for more bookish content coming very soon. But from me, for now, that's ta-ra.